me, this is your friend Darren Iman, the master of shenanigans. Last video I did a quick sketch of Daredevil done in real time, and I mentioned that the first person to ask for a character was what I would do next, and I got a request for Bane, so I'm going to draw that now. Also, I'm over the moon because I love that character. The original graphic novel that introduced Bane by Chuck Dixon, I think, is one of the greatest introductions to any villain ever, and the whole series of Nightfall is just phenomenal. So as you might imagine, I'll be drawing the comic book version of Bane, although I really like the actor Tom Hardy. I did not care for the Bane in the film, nor did I care for the Bane in Batman and Robin. I just don't think that the cinema has actually nailed the character, but in the comics, one of the greatest villains ever. So I also want to say really quick before I get started on that last sketch I showed everybody this hastily constructed overhead camera holder that I built out of tent props that I got at Value Village using electrical tape to suspend the camera from. And a friend of mine saw this, who lives here in Sault Ste. Marie, and came over and dropped off this gnarly camera stand. It's got a boom mic here, but I'm pretty sure that my camera will screw into the end. If not, I'm sure I can rig something up. So let's get started. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Real-time sketch of Bane. I say real-time, but you know, if someone knocks at the door, if I have to go to the bathroom, if there's an alien incursion, I might just edit out that part. But other than that, this is going to be real-time. What you see is what you get. No camera tricks. Maybe just a few editing tricks. Okay, so Bane. Here we are. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Just kind of making it up as I go along, which is my general philosophy in life. Okay, once again, using a mechanical pencil here, because it has an HB lead. Normally I like to sketch things out with a very blunt pencil. This, like a very blunt, fat pencil. This mechanical pencil I would usually reserve for doing finer detail, because it leaves just a really, really thin line. But I'm just not sure how well a hard lead would show up on camera, so we'll use the mechanical. Alright, so I'm just roughing in the shapes. Very, very fast, very, very loose. I mentioned this on the last video, but in case you haven't seen it, the most important thing to do when drawing, especially at the beginning stage, is just to go fast and loose. Do not tighten up. Fast, loose, free, easy. Don't use the eraser. Imagine if, for instance, I was to draw... Oh, hang on, there we go, I knew this was going to happen. I'm going to have to take random periodic breaks here to raise the camera as it slowly descends. I'll show everybody why in a minute. It's balanced on a boom, which I can't seem to tighten enough. It just keeps lowering. Alright, that's alright. We'll make do with what we have. The idea here is that if I was to draw something, like let's say a nose, I draw a nose here, and I say, whoops, that's wrong, and I erase it. And I try again, I say, whoops, that's wrong, and I erase it. And I do this 50 different times. Not only is it going to take all day, but eventually I'll get it right. However, it would take a month of Sundays to do. Whereas, here's the idea I want to challenge you with. This pectoral muscle, for instance, I have drawn near to 50 times. I've just, when I do one line, I don't like it, I just keep going and going and going, and 50 lines later I'll have something that I want, and then I just erase the rest. So that is my basic philosophy of keeping things fast and loose. It just makes it much, much easier. Okay, he's going to have a belt here. And I took a screenshot on my cell phone of what Bane's costume looks like. And I was sure to pick just a basic costume. Or sorry, how would I articulate this? Just an illustration that is not really my style. That's just really there to show what his costume looks like. Because if I go and I take a celebrated comic book artist that's drawn Bane, and I use that as the costume reference, naturally I'm going to end up aping their style a little bit. And the problem with that is that, first of all, I'm not as good as your David Finch or your Jim Lees. And second of all, I would be not only aping their style, but their ciphers as well. So everyone kind of has their little shortcuts that they use, their little techniques. And those are things that I don't want to copy. That's what makes them them and me me. So I'll show everyone the photo that I'm going to be using. So right now I don't have that in front of me, so I don't know what his costume looks like. I remember there's a belt. I'll take some photo reference of my own hand in that pose, and I'll get back to it. The idea here is to never stay in one place over long. I heard Adam Hughes talk about this when he was sketching at a Comic-Con, where he said he wants his pencil to be like liquid butter. It's just constantly moving. So here I'm drawing the rib cage, next I'll go back to the head, next I'll move over here. The whole idea is to build up the sketch all at once. So not to draw the head and just go ahead and add all the detail in the head and the face and get all that done, and then move down to the neck and then move. No, you have to build it all up at the same time. Otherwise, what happens if you get down to a certain area and realize that that doesn't fit, that now the head is too small? Well, you did all that detail for nothing, right? Okay, so I'm definitely going to be using my own hand. As models for these fists, just because I struggled with the other one. So I'll make sure I have this right. But the rest is good to go. So let's take a brief pause while I go and stand in the mirror and photograph my hands, and then we'll get right back to this real-time sketch of Bane. And we're back. So these are the photos that I've just taken of the fists. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. It's me standing in front of my mirror. Yes, that is me posing in my underwear. There you go. And you thought that this was child safe. Okay. These cell phones, I tell you, they're a gift, man. When I first went to college, and I'm really dating myself here, but when I first went to college, the internet was kind of a new thing. Not too many people had it, not too many people knew how to use it. And I took visual arts, English, marketing, and philosophy. So as Bruce Lee would say, philosophy, so you can think deep thoughts about being unemployed. But I used to have just boxes with magazine clippings full of reference. So like if I got called on to draw a fire truck, I had a box full of fire trucks from every different angle, or I'd have a toy of a fire truck that I'd find somewhere and I'd pick it up and use it for reference. Now, like, People talk about the old timers like your Jack Kirby's. And, like, man, with those guys in comics, with no reference whatsoever, would be called upon to draw, you know, one day. Oh, sorry about that, it's my phone buzzing. I'll turn the volume off. One day these guys would be called upon to draw a scene in outer space. The next day they'd be called upon to draw an underwater scene. You know, an underwater kingdom. And these guys would just, I mean, it was just insane. They would make it all up on the fly. It took an incredible amount of imagination that now, I mean, mind you, I don't have an underwater kingdom for comparison, so if I'm called upon to draw Atlantis, I'm still going to have to use a modicum of imagination. But I can look up sharks and clownfish and anything that I need. I can just look up the reference on Google and I can create something that bears a facsimile of reality. It looks like it could actually exist. And it was just something that these guys, these old timers, never had. And that is mind-blowing to me. Okay, we have something that resembles a fist here. You'll notice that I still have to use an incredible amount of imagination, because when it comes to drawing muscles, I unfortunately cannot take a picture of myself in front of the mirror to use as reference. I am limited in that ability. Fists, no problem. I have 2 of those. Abs, I do have 6 abs like everybody else, but mine are safely hidden, so I can't be drawing those. Okay, we have reasonable facsimile of a fist here. And whatever I don't like, it's a little too small, I can fix in the ink. And that is what I'm going to do. So let's move to the next one. Okay, how's my camera doing? Pick you right up. Groovy. Next time I'm going to have to just epoxy this so I won't have to keep adjusting it. Okay. Fist number 2, I will draw a little bit bigger because I think the other one is too small. And if I have to, I can shrink this fist slightly with the ink while enlarging the other one with the ink. Now this could all be done in pencil, of course. It would involve a lot of erasing and it would just take more time than I have. Oh wow. See, the joy of doing things in real time. This is like live TV. Anything can go wrong. Alrighty. You know what? Just because that was so much fun, I'm not going to edit that out. I'll leave it in so people can appreciate the day-to-day struggles of a comic book artist. Us masters of shenanigans. No one knows the pain, the suffering. You know, they say you must suffer for your art. Well, this would have been true had that collapsed on my head. Maybe if it did, the sketch would turn out 10 times better. It's like, there, look, I've suffered for my art. Alright, you know what? We're going to take a break right here while I fix this hook up. Okay, we are back. I ended up using the old tent prop overhead projector, but I am going to Fix the new one, because the new one is a lot better, the one with the boom mic there. The only problem is that, you know, again, it's just being clung to with tape. So I will be fixing that out of epoxy, but I will go to the store and I will get some, and I will fix this. Okay. We have fists that look like fists. Now, all we have to do is get the details of the costume. So to show you this, it's not difficult. I just go into my gallery, and there it is. So that is the costume details. And let's see, he has right in here kind of like a, it looks like kind of like a Mexican wrestler type costume, like El Super Bisto. And his belt is just, okay, so I got the circle part, right? And there's 1, 2 circles. And obviously this isn't the movie costume, so for whoever it is that asked that I draw Bane today, if you're expecting the movie costume, I don't even apologize, because, hey, this is a way for people to get into comics, as the comics are always better. Okay, and let's see, I'll move on to ink here pretty soon. There's like a zipper here. And we've got this almost like a Spider-Man type eyeball, close to a Venom type eyeball here. Okay, and then just slits for, I want to change the eyes a bit. The eyes here look like they're just too big. Let's give them more like Batman eyes or Spawn eyes. It's okay to take some creative license. I want it to look more like he's grimacing behind the mask, and you just kind of can't get that with great big wide open eyes. I want eyes that look a little more sinister than that. Batman is not a villain, but it's drawn like a villain. He's supposed to be, you know, someone says, what is the greatest horror comic book character ever created? I don't want to hear Dracula or Blade. I want to hear Batman, because that's what he's always been kind of meant to be. So he's drawn, even though he doesn't kill, he's drawn more like an anti-hero. You know, you think of like your Superman, who's just big, bright, colorful. And that man's a dark, sinister-looking character. He's supposed to be frightening. And being that this is a Batman villain, he has to be even more frightening than Batman, so we can't have him with these giant puppy dog eyes. No, 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 says I, with apologies to the original design of the character, which looks pretty gnarly, by the way. Okay, and then he's got these great big tubes that come out of his mask, and these are what pump him full of venom, which gives him superhuman strength. The cool thing about Bane, though, is that he's such a great character. He doesn't even really need the venom. It just gives him like an added bonus. He's really kind of like a really a villain version of Batman. He doesn't have powers per se, Okay, and he's just, you know, trained himself. So that's what makes him kind of cool. The venom's just an added bonus. And we'll, oh, yeah, he's got gloves here. Damn it. This is why I like using much thicker, much heavier pencils for this layout stage. First of all, it's faster, because the lines are a lot thicker. You don't have to go over them as much. Second of all, with a big, heavy pencil, it doesn't break. Okay, we're good with that. Let's move on. Let's check to see if we're still filming. Nothing is falling. Cool. The sky is not falling on my head. Okay. Bane. Did I mention that I was glad that I got requested this character? Love this character. Okay, here we go with the ink. Again, I'm using a China marker. It's a brush tip, and I really like these for inking. They're my tool of choice for everything except for hatching, simply because I can control the line weight. And for those of you who want to know what that means, line weight is basically the thickness of a line. So you can control it all with one stroke from thick to thin. But I call it line weight simply because wherever there's an area with a hell of a lot of detail, I'm going to put a heavy, thick line, and that's going to hold all that detail from spilling out. Just kind of like how I like to think about it. Whereas if there's a line with not a lot of detail, where the light is really hitting it so it's kind of whitewashed out, then I use a very thin holding line so that the detail, you know, is not going to spill out. Little ciphers, little tricks, things for me to remember. And also it lets me control shading. So if the light source is coming from the top, which it usually is, when one thinks if you're indoors there's a light source coming from the light from the ceiling, if you're outside, the sun, the moon, or overhead. Now, great dramatic lighting effects can be done by underlighting, but for this we'll keep it simple. We'll go with what one would normally expect of a light source, which is just on top here. So going back to why that's relevant for line weight, well, as I move away from the light, I will increase my line weight. And this is simply because that's where the shadow will pool. It's obviously going to be big and veiny, and for that I'm just going to use whiteout rather than draw each individual vein. I find it easier, faster, more fun to just draw the veins with a whiteout stick and then just go in with a marker and fill out the shaded areas. You'll see what I mean when I get there. Okay. There's almost like a band in here. It's holding the glove on tight. This marker's kind of dying, but it's okay. I bought them by the box. So I've got a whole tray full of markers here. And one thing about markers and brushes, in this case a brush marker, is I never throw them out. A good dead marker, good dead brush can be used for all kinds of effects, specifically dry brushing effects. Never throw anything out in art. Did it with sketchbooks. I have sketchbooks with work in it that I was proud of at the time that today I find embarrassingly awful, but we need to keep this stuff, you know? Okay, now this fist I enlarged a little bit, but this one still looks much bigger, so I'm just gonna, you can hardly tell, but I'm choosing the lines, and they already exist, but I'm choosing the lines that delineate the shape that are just a little closer. So the lines that are bigger I'm leaving out, as you can see, this line here I've left out, and I went with the line that's in a little bit more, if that makes any sense. So it makes the fist a little bit smaller so they kind of match up. Alright, now we do this belt. See the big thick lines I can add if I want to? Look at the difference between the thickness of that and, like, say, like in here. Just such a time saver, and it happens so naturally too. It's just by leaning down on the marker a bit more I get the weights that I wanted. Oh, and this is, you're going to see his belly button here. I just realized, because this whole navel is exposed, and he's going to be really hairy too now that I think about it, which is going to be cool because with all the hair all in his arms, it'll give me some lines to cut into when I put the veins in with the whiteout. Okay, let's get rid of our pencil lines. This is just a kneaded eraser. I bought it because I needed it. What's funny is that I'm a master of dad jokes, and I'm not even a dad. Why do lobsters refuse to share? Anyone? Correct, they are shellfish. Okay, there we go. We got the basic outline of the character. Now obviously we need the shading. So simple here. I'm just going to, you know what, I'll shade the details of his costume first. And this is all about refracted light. Now for those of you who don't know what refracted light is, if I was to draw a sphere, and the light is coming this way, so this is a little light bulb here. Well, the shadow isn't going to go to the very end. It's actually going to leave a white halo there. So as you can see, cast shadow. And the reason for that is because this curves back towards the light source, but also because light reflects. So the darkest area isn't going to be right at the end. Light's going to bounce off and come back to that. That's why we call it refracted, which really just means reflected light. And what's great about anatomy is that, or anything that's done, that's nature, that's not made by man. So any kind of, you know, trees, grass, human beings, animals, there's no such thing as a straight line. So everything is a sphere, right? Some spheres are, you know, squished. Some spheres have been pulled like taffy, but they're still spheres. So if you can draw a sphere, you can theoretically draw anything. And if I look at this, everything in here, I'll use a pencil, everything in here is just a sphere. Some, you know, a little oddly shaped, but you're not going to find straight lines. So I shade the sphere. Well, all I got to do is do that on every single one of these. Now, the costume is reflective, so that's why I do that first, because that principle really applies on the costume. Whereas the other parts of his body, I'm just going to kind of concentrate on more cast shadow. So this would be just to create a difference in texture is not the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I guess texture, just to create a difference. So it would look like this isn't part of his clothes, but, or sorry, that this isn't part of his physique, but actually clothes that are laying on top. Okay, same thing here. We leave, I don't know if you noticed, but we leave a little white area. Same thing here, so the shading's not drawn all the way to the end. Treating it like a sphere. And once again, I didn't plan for this to be a tutorial. It was just a quick sketch, a drawing, but seeing as how I'm usually listening to music when I'm sketching, and now I'm actually just talking to fill up the time, why not explain a bit of the process, what goes on in that crazy brain of mine as I go. Okay, so we have a bit of shadow under the rib cage, and obviously we're going to have some shading here. Now, oh, and I have to shade the gloves. Okay, gloves, same idea. By now you kind of know what I'm doing. Oh, and I forgot that his knuckles have these like brass knuckles on them. Metal studs on his knuckles. Which if I was going to spend a career punching people in the face, I would want that too. I'll tell you, I worked as a bouncer for a lot of years, and the sign of a bouncer that you don't want to hire is someone who was out looking for a fight. A bouncer that you do want to hire is someone who can diffuse a situation without resorting to violence. Now, having said that, there's always crazy people, and when you worked as a bouncer for as long as I have, punches inevitably, occasionally do get thrown, and thankfully I know how to throw a punch without smashing my knuckles and getting hurt. But the funny thing is about fighting, guys, here's a public service announcement. I feel like I should have a big "the more you know" lit up here. For all of you youngsters out there who think being tough and getting into fights is the coolest thing, fighting sucks, man. No matter if you win or lose. I won't get into a debate about, no one ever really wins a fight. But regardless of any of that, you always get hurt. And I mean, I would wake up the next day after throwing someone out of the bar who was being really belligerent and just refused to leave. And like my hair would hurt, my skin would hurt, everything would hurt. I would always have a tube of Ozanol with me, just for like little scrapes and lacerations. And the worst was politely asking a girl to leave. And this isn't a sexist thing. I don't know, maybe some of you might think it is, but I was raised, you don't hit a girl. I don't know how that works. I mean, is that sexist? I mean, if I do go around beating the hell out of women, am I now being politically correct? I don't know, but I don't. And just that's the way I was raised. And if I was at the bar, and generally here, it's the men that cause way more problems than the women do. So there you go, there's something in the favor of women. But whenever a girl was really out of line or really drunk and I had to say, sorry, you're gonna have to ask her to leave. If she didn't want to, I would do everything, please, just help escort her to the door, but I would get just clawed at, just raped, just claws, like babies. If you're handling a baby, they will claw you, they will claw your eyes out. And you can't do anything, you can't hit them, you can't do anything, so you just kind of got to take it. So I would wake up, the next day after, if I had to kick a woman out of the bar, just looked like I lost a fight with a freaking cheetah. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to go ahead and use, let's say, a 0.2, and we're going to make this guy one hairy bastard. So Bane, has a lot of body hair. Now the same thing with the hair applies. The same sense of shading and detail that I mentioned about the holding line applies, right? Because you'll notice that even though he's going to have hair coming right up to here, that's where the light is. So you're not going to see that much of it. There's going to be a lot less. And I didn't even draw it touching the skin. I have them kind of hanging out sort of on their own there. And the shading, or excuse me, the hair, I'm going to combine with hatching. Since cross-hatching kind of looks like little hairs anyway, I might as well make the most of it. So here's going to be cross-hatching in order to indicate some shading there. And I am going to have that gradate outwards as body hair. And there you go, creates the illusion. Yeah, this takes forever. That's the thing about drawing Wolverine, especially without his costume. You know, I'll draw Wolverine, and then the next thing you know, he's such a hairy bastard, I gotta go ahead and draw like the shag carpeting that he carries around with him everywhere he goes. I would show you my torso, especially because it's hot as freaking Hades out here, to show you that I was not born with chest hair, but thankfully for all of you, I will save you the excruciating torment of such a flabby sight. Okay, now I know where the hair, I do know where hair grows. In the biceps and the inside of the forearm. You can see here on mine, don't have much, but you can see the hairs are here, not so much on the inside. And again, I'll just have little sporadic hairs where the light source is to show that they're there. Some kind of metal shading textures on his belt there. Okay, oh, and of course, the thing that makes Bane so gnarly is he has a big hairy chest. And again, I'm going to combine hatching on all of these pectoral muscles with hair. And here I'm not so much concerned with making single lines as I am with just kind of clumping them up. This guy's like a grizzly bear. And again, notice the little halo I'm leaving underneath, like with the sphere that I told you about. Little tricks of the trade to add planes, dimensions. The idea with any drawing is that it's quite literally a magic trick. Maybe that's why I'm so enamored with it. You're drawing on something that is quite literally paper thin. In fact, it is paper. And I'm trying to make it look like it's, you know, 3D. And there's lots of tricks that I will employ to create this illusion, including hatching, like I'm doing here. Okay, now we gotta put the big gnarly veins on him. Oh, maybe a little bit of hatching here. And I do that with my whiteout stick. Now this probably isn't really going to show up on camera, except in the areas where it really kind of comes in. But that's okay, because when I go underneath my whiteout, with a marker in order to add the shading, then you're really gonna, then the camera really pick it up. So hopefully, if this isn't showing up what I'm doing right now, it will momentarily. Okay, and we're going to put a couple of veins coming in here. Oh, and I just realized I forgot to do the shading of his, I don't know what muscles these are called. His wing muscles, I call them, because a lot of these bodybuilders look like they have friggin' wings like a flying squirrel underneath them. Okay, give that whiteout a brief moment to dry, and instead of just wasting time sitting around waiting for the paint to dry, let's sign this. Emond 2020, and a lot of this is dry, so I'm going to go ahead underneath it. See? Go underneath all these big lines of whiteout. Only underneath. Why? Because the light source is on top, so there wouldn't be any shaded areas on top. So just the underside of everything gets these shadows. Not, yeah, I would say here, because it kind of retreats from the light. Just a hint. And there we have it. Bane is the name. So, oh, one final touch. These chords, you always notice something. Was it Leonardo da Vinci who said that a drawing or a work of art is never finished, only abandoned? But I do have a schedule to keep, so this will, a couple of hairs in here. As I'm saying that I'm going to stop now. I just can't put it down. Can't put it down. How did I learn how to draw quickly? Deadlines. The magic of deadlines. Darren, this sketch needs to be done, you know, today. Oh, okay, it's not ready yet. Tough, you don't get paid. Okay, you learn how to draw fast, very, very quickly. So, with that, I could add to this. I could, for instance, add some cross-hatching in here, and a zillion other things. But we need to know when to let go, when to cut that umbilical cord. Even if I really try hard to pronounce that correctly, I'm still going to screw it up, so it's not worth the effort. And there it is. We have our Bane. So thank you for, I believe it was Percy who chimed in on my last sketch of Daredevil I did, who specifically requested Bane. If you live in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, feel free to drop me a line and I will let you keep this. And for anybody else, you know, I haven't actually given this any thought, but I will. If anybody else who requests me to sketch a character, if you actually want to keep that character, I should just do some giveaways, but let me give that some thought. I'm still a newbie to the whole YouTube process. Let's let this come right up to the camera so you can see how it turned out. Bane is the name. No background or anything, but hey, looks pretty cool. I'm happy with it. All right, until next time.